Brainwashing. How often does that take place? How easy is it to brainwash someone? That's what Kevin Franke is saying happened with Jodi Hildebrandt and his wife, Ruby Franke. He just wanted to get back to his family. He would do anything he could to get his family back. And, well, in the way of doing that, he was taken advantage of, and he thinks it was brainwashing. That's his claim against Ruby and Jodi, who, of course, have criminal prosecution against them now for child abuse. Joining me to discuss, Laurie Gilbertson, former prosecutor. Laurie, is this a valid argument? Is this someone who's speaking maybe a little bit too much, that's almost incriminating themselves by saying brainwashing and maybe not just toxic codependence?
Oh, and where's the line, Tony?
Yeah,
Where's that line
yeah.
between the toxic codependence? When I started researching this a little bit and reading about it, I just kept just kind of sighing in disbelief the more and more I read. I mean, here's a guy, I think it was maybe 13 months or so that he hasn't seen his kids even by now.
Yeah.
And instead of, taking any accountability whatsoever for being a completely absent father in this case, and we haven't even gotten to what his, wife and her business partner or whatever have been doing to abuse these children. Um, Brainwashing just doesn't seem to cut it for me.
Yeah.
It's a real mess, and obviously he's got some real issues, as does she. But I was surprised at brainwashing. I really was.
Yeah. I mean, what sort of life?
Brainwashing for what?
Yeah. I get, he was kind of going along with Ruby's idea on the YouTube channel, and she seemed to kind of be the alpha in this relationship. And this is how we're going to do things, and you're going to go along with it.
Yeah.
And then eventually she found Jodi Hildebrandt, decided to go over there, and told Kevin to, scram. But what sort of accountability does he have in this? Because there are situations like this. Take the YouTube and all that out of the situation, and just a couple that separates. One decides to take the kids, and they agree, I'm going to have the kids over here, you're going to be over here. And unfortunately, sometimes parents are cool with not being with their kids. That seemed to be what took place in this situation. But then the kids get abused. I guess you can make the argument that he had no idea that Ruby would be putting the kids into that sort of a situation. But again, he then also did not check up on his own children. Does that put him in some
Yeah.
sort of a liability for not being a parent participating in the life of the child? There's no order separating him from the kids or anything of that nature.
Right. I mean, we're talking about that moral line versus legal responsibility.
Yeah.
And morally, here she is on YouTube talking about these horrendous things that she thinks that she's doing to her children. I know you said kind of take it out of it, but I feel like we need to put it in a little bit because this was fully out there. He was a part of it. He knew all about it. So to then be absent for all of these months, to take no responsibility whatsoever for checking up on his children, when in fact the neighbors were calling child services, people who were seeing the YouTube channel and were just appalled and afraid for these children and being protective of them were calling them. The police were being called. And all of this, until, we reach kind of the part where, one of the kids escapes and that brings everything to a head.
Hmm.
So morally, 100%, he needed to be taking responsibility. And legally, if they're, I'm not familiar with the exact civil law would be there,
Hmm.
but it does seem to make sense that if there is not any kind of separation decree or divorce decree or parenting agreement there, then he is still responsible for those children, even if he's not there.
Yeah, because he essentially was
Mhm,
making the voluntary choice not to go
mhm.
participate in the life. He just listened.
Right,
Okay, I won't come. But then what's
right.
happening with your kids? Another
Mhm.
disturbing part of this case, I know for a while Jodi Hildebrandt did have a license to practice as a therapist, but the other part of this was life coach, and that term in itself is a scary one because it doesn't mean anything at all. I mean, we could set up an institution here, make a website, and start certifying people at the end of the day. $500 will give you a certificate, and then you get a bunch of lessons on how to be a life coach, and you get to hang something on your wall. That's all it means. It doesn't mean anything. But so many people are doing this, and they're getting behind it. And so much of the public doesn't seem to understand the difference between an
Mhm.
actual psychologist, therapist, counselor, and life coach. How much of
Yeah.
this is going on beyond just Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt with people hiding behind these made up titles, pretending to be relationship experts and life experts and leading people down really dark paths?
Oh, Tony, you are speaking my language right now. You really are. I mean, to have this completely kind of unregulated industry that then people can um, put themselves out there to have some expertise when they actually have no expertise. And in fact, in the case of Ruby and Jody, are about the last people in the world who should be giving parenting advice, especially
Mhm.
under the guise of life coach
Yeah.
or parenting coach. So look, this is the age we live in
Mhm.
when anyone can put themselves up on YouTube or put themselves as they did or Instagram or Twitter or whatever as an expert.
Yeah.
And it is really unfortunately up to the people who are kind of buying into it when we talk about brainwashing to research to know who these people are, to know whether this is someone who really does have any expertise. And lots of people kind of fall into that trap.
Mhm.
And it can be I'm up on my soapbox a little bit, but I think with the whole life coach thing, while there may be some people out there who actually are talented in
Sure.
helping coach people through life transitions.
Yeah. And
And I can say I have some friends who are coaches who will add life coach to their credentials
mhm.
and happen to be extremely talented at what
Sure.
they do, but
Sure.
they do a lot of other things as well. I think that when you put life coach onto something, it's really should be a huge red flag to people that this person is not regulated, is not qualified, doesn't necessarily have any expertise to be giving you the advice that they're giving, and also to be charging for it, or say to have a YouTube channel that people are watching and thinking, oh, it's okay that this woman is starving her children, not letting them sleep in a bed, and basically treating them horrendously because she says she's a parenting expert.
Yeah.
Anybody can say they're an expert.
Sure.
Anybody can. So we really need to be much more cognizant and much more aware of those things. And, it is fortunate and maybe a good sign in this area, Tony, that people who were watching this channel are the ones who called the police also. And the ones who called, DHS
Mhm.
are the ones who got them removed from YouTube.
Sure.
So I take a little tiny bit of comfort in it.
Mhm.
But just like you, from reading all about this, it's incredibly disturbing on so many different levels.
So that's one of the points that Kevin Franke is trying to make through his attorney of life coach. It's a big thing. We got to legislate this. Legislate all you want. People are just gonna come up with another name for it. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
and like you said, there are legitimate people out there who have legitimate
Uh-huh.
resources and good knowledge to give people who are not necessarily counselors or therapists.
Mhm.
But it's not everybody. And the scary part is anybody
Right.
can get into that. Would
Mhm.
legislating help any of this?
I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, they're just going to put another word on it. Um, Coaches aren't necessarily regulated. There's all kinds of different coaches. You can be an executive coach. You can be a transition coach. You can be all sorts of things. And there's lots of organizations that actually train coaches and give certifications for various things. And what I would say to people, if you are looking ever for someone to help you in this kind of situation, to get parenting advice, to get relationship advice, to get life transition advice, is to do your research, to look at how people are credentialed, look at what their experience is, look at testimonials from other people, look at how long they've been in practice, and really know about who you are going to see.
Mhm.
And especially do a trial session, get a feel. And if your gut says this person is not what I'm looking for, they don't have what I need, doesn't matter,
Yeah.
um, even if they have the credentials, and you find someone else who's the better fit. But it's important to do your research here because people can go out, just call themselves, as you said, life
Yeah.
coaches,
I
experts,
mean,
whatever.
it's a scary industry because essentially it kind of
Hmm.
creates, an echo chamber,
Hmm.
in a lot of ways where somebody's, if they're wanting to make their money, they can easily tell the person what they want to hear, especially if they're very good at manipulating people. They're not
Hmm.
coming from any sort of ethical, bar or standpoint that a therapist would be coming from or a counselor would be coming from. It's just, well, this is clearly what this person wants. Let me feed them what they want. I mean, it's like anything. It's like an algorithm, if
Yeah.
you will, and then it
Yeah.
just keeps feeding into what someone wants. So I can see where some people have a very hard time turning away from some of these people because they're telling me what I want to hear. They're validating
Right.
maybe my crazy thoughts.
Hmm. Yeah, and those are the people who get targeted. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the audience that they target because it is all about manipulation. And if you ever look at, a lot of the things that we see these days about various cults and coercion, you think of like the Nixium cult,
Yeah.
where the cult leader was some of it was physical, but most of it was just this very emotional coercion that built up time after time after time. And he had no credentials,
No.
and he put himself out there, right, as this incredibly bright expert who was going to pull everyone in and teach them how to live life. And it is the vulnerable people who get targeted,
Mhm.
and the vulnerable people who really fall prey to it.
Yeah.
So it is really quite dangerous. And now that we've said all this, and I'm going back to thinking about your first question about brainwashing. Maybe we need to think about Kevin a little bit more. Maybe there was some of that here.
Maybe he's not lying after all.
Maybe he's not.
Hey, it's Tony Brueski. If you want more of our interview with our guests, be sure to check out our podcast, Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Just search that wherever you download podcasts and press subscribe. Also, you can check out our YouTube channel for the full video version of the interviews as well, under the same name, Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Check it out, subscribe, binge, and enjoy. Thanks for watching.